Hey guys, Happy New Year. I figured I'd throw on the camera, well, the recording software, whatever I've decided to use as video for this video. Throw in the microphone and make a video. I've been watching some videos lately on YouTube, just these random YouTubers, nothing really big channels, about 10,000, 20,000 at most, and they make these videos where they're just talking, throw on the microphone. Not really a script or anything like that, and then they make hundreds of thousands of views. That's not something I care about, the views, the view count itself, or monetization. I don't care about that. But it's more like, well, sometimes life can be a little bit lonely over here when you have a certain mindset, and it's nice to know that other people can share that mindset. So hopefully some of you can relate to this video. So what's the topic? An Outpost White. What the hell am I talking about? Have I been drinking too much? No, I'm very sober. I haven't had anything to drink. I'm talking about an Outpost White. Now, what is that? Basically, it's a concept that my friend and I from In These Goings Down have come up for ourselves, basically. So, basically, it's a white person that is born outside of the, shall we say, Europe. The motherland, the fatherland, whichever one's applicable, but one that's born in an outpost, so colonial outpost, so Canada, South Africa, Argentina, Australia, America, and so on and so forth, right? And the idea there is that they're a little bit different, and I think that's true. This video idea came to me when I was walking around Zurich, and I just saw maybe 50% are actually full-on white, as in they could be Swiss. But even then, you got the Germans, you got the Italians, Frenchies, they all look similar, right? So, and the other 50%, Jesus Christ, I'll just say Zurich is getting really ass-raped about immigration here, right? So what is an Outpost White, really? I think it's also fair to say that it's someone who doesn't really adopt the culture of that outpost that they were born in, at least not fully, That's the case for me. I grew up in South Africa, so for context, my blood is English and Germanic Swiss, and I was born and raised in South Africa. But when I left, I never looked back, I've never been back, I never intend to go back, and I threw away my passport, literally. I have a Swiss passport, so don't worry. But it's like it was just an outpost, so it led to a feeling of rootlessness, to be honest, when I finally came to Europe. I've been to England and I detest the place. The absolute state of places like London and Birmingham aside, I just can't really fully relate to the people, even though my mother, she was a housewife, so I spent a lot of time with her with English films, English comedy, English things like this, and the food. Nonetheless, it feels alien to me to be there. In Switzerland, well, I don't have a single Swiss friend, and I've lived here 13 years now. I don't have one. I have friends, but none of them are Swiss, so I don't get on with the Swiss mentality at all. It's difficult. So again, I feel like an Outpost White. So I don't know where I belong. That's the funny thing. So I thought, is it all that bad? Are there some benefits? Are there some negatives? And let's discuss that. So what's the negative of being an Outpost White? Well, the first and the obvious one is that, well, the only one I've come up with is that you'll never be a part of any group of blood. So, for example, in Japan and Korea, they're kind of famous for this kind of mentality, is that if you're born like like Japanese, full on, like your mother's Japanese, father's Japanese, but they had you in like Brazil. For some reason, I think Brazil has a number of Japanese people, ethnically so, right? But born and raised there. They go back home to Japan, they're not fully accepted, So they're kind of like outpost Japanese, I guess, is the concept. Same goes for Koreans, and I think that in that case it's a little bit harsh, the way they are treated, So it's like a negative in the sense that, well, you come back to these countries in Europe, whichever one is of your blood, and you'll never fully fit in because you were raised outside of it, no matter how hard you try. So you always just kind of have to pretend And if you're a little bit mixed, like I am, I'm mixed, not racially, Jesus, I'm white as hell and I burn fast in the sun, so I'm definitely a white person, but I don't belong anywhere, so that's a negative. But the benefits, I think, really are fulfilling. So, for example, there's no a blind allegiance to any one place. You're basically a cultural mercenary, which is a term I also came up with. I never heard anyone say that. So basically, think of a mercenary as someone who hires himself out to whichever flag or nation is willing to pay. So, like that, I've come to realize that Europe has been, in many cases, a letdown when it came to specific things that I've looked for. For example, in the dating sense, right? I'm a traditionalist. I think the man pays, he takes the woman out. Typical traditional gender roles is what we have in South Africa, but in Europe, forget about it. In most places, they split the bill, they do all this bullshit. She's got a chip on her shoulder, she goes to feminist marches, not all over Europe, mind you, right? But the point is that you don't have to align with any sort of value just because you come from that country. You know, you can make up your own or decide which cultural aspects of a sort of society best suit you. Right? So you could say, well, in Italy, just as an example, I don't know if it's true, in Italy they have a little bit more like gender roles, you know, so woman or woman, man or men, that type of thing. Or in the Balkan states, if you are so inclined to go there, I'm not. But yeah, that's how it is, you know. So you can say, I like that, and you can adopt aspects which best suit your personality, I think. You know, so it's not like if you grew up in a certain place, then you're certainly going to have those tendencies. For example, in Germany, if you're born and raised in Germany, then you're going to be behaving like a German, typically, a modern German, I should say. You know, because real Germans, they died in many decades ago. We'll get into that in another video. But modern ones, so they'll split the bill. They won't have any of their traditional shit. So if you're born like that, you're going to have a stick up your ass. I mean, this is one YouTuber. He makes fun of Germans, but he's echoing facts about Germans, right? It's ridiculous. It makes me annoyed. Like, how can you find something of value in that culture, the way they behave? Mind you, I say modern Germans, not old ones. So the second point is that you can settle almost anywhere. Right, so you don't have any real ties anywhere except maybe your family, but you can, you know, if you want to be a digital nomad or something, no problem. If you decide I want to emigrate, and you can do it, you know, of course you can do it. If you're like, say you're born and raised in Norway and you decide you want to go to Cambodia, all right, but you're going to have a lot of difficulties, shall we say, in regards to, you're going to miss aspects of your culture, what you grew up with. But if you're sort of culturalist and you take aspects of cultures that you like and respect, it's much easier, I think. You know, there's not going to be that homesickness as much, I think. Because, I mean, I grew up in South Africa, when did I leave? 24? I never think of that goddamn place, ever. You know, maybe if I'm like, you know, had a few drinks and like some nostalgic song comes on, but apart from that, I never think about it. So you can move around the planet a lot easier. I think dating is also easier because you also date the culture. So, for example, the woman I love, she's Russian. All right. I've never been to Russia before. I knew her, but I've been there many times since, and you know, I found it easy to sort of integrate myself there and get along with things with the way things are done. Whereas I know many people from Europe who've traveled to Russia, and they're like, oh my god, this is too much for me, you know. And I wasn't even like in the polished, sanitized Russia, like St. Petersburg. I was in Kazan, which is more eastern, you know. I think it also allows being an Outpost White is to have a generally chill approach to life, a sort of open-mindedness, right? So, for example, certain cultures have, all cultures, but certain ones, for example, have strong social norms and etiquettes, right, and behaviors, right? and if you go to another country, it's going to clash. So you take the Japanese, who are very hierarchical and, you know, polite, introverted and such. You bring them to Colombia, holy shit, they're going to lose their minds, right? But I think Outpost Whites tend to be more outgoing, more easygoing, more laid back. If I think about South Africa, Australia, Americans, Canadians, they all have reputations for being like laid back people. Whereas you look at the Germans, no, they're going to stick up their ass. The French, my God, so on and so forth. So I think that really is a benefit. And in a way, I think because of that openness, it gave me a lot of critical thinking ability, you know. You don't just sort of accept things as they were, because that's the norm that you've always grown up with. Because if you're just exposed to so many different cultures, like I was, you don't really just accept a norm and then go with it, right? So, for example, in Switzerland, there's a lot of trust in the government, right? And to do what the government says, you know, comply, that type of shit. And then with that bullshit corona fucking virus came along, these cocksuckers here, they had 3 votes, because we have direct democracy. So we had 3 votes where we could lift the restrictions imposed on us about a virus that, you know, has got a survival rate of over 99% if you're a normal, healthy person, right? For 3 times they said, no, let's keep it. We trust the government. Ah, fanculo, fuck that shit, right? So I think that if you're like more open-minded and you question things, it allows you to think a little bit more critically if you don't just accept. Of course, Australia had that problem too, so that kind of shoots my theory out the water. But anyway, this is just something that was on my mind. I figured I'd throw on the microphone, put on some background footage for you guys to enjoy. You know, it's more about listening. And then make a habit of making these sort of videos, because I got a lot in my mind lately, and I got nowhere to put it. And that's what YouTube's for. Anyway, guys, this is my thought about Outpost Whites. I guess it also applies if, like, an outpost Japanese, you know, if they're born in Hawaii and they have also born in Brazil or something, maybe they have similar plights. Who knows? But, you know, as a European, as an Outpost White, that's what I can say. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope it wasn't too boring or too weird. But speaking from the heart, yeah, so leave a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I'll hit you up and in another video soon. Cheers, guys.